Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme TV show here from the makers of the Xtreme movie show on YouTube. I'm Rob, the host. My guest tonight from season 1 of The Witcher from a couple days ago, Dalton. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hello, and good evening, folks.
And also the real, one and only Dr. V. Good evening, sir.
How's it going?
It's going good, sir. Tonight we're going to be talking about episode 2 from season 1 of The Witcher, currently on Netflix. We talked about the first episode recently, and that was a pretty good hit. Aloha Comic Quirks. Glad to see that you're here in channel. So, guys, I just got done watching the episode. I know some of y'all have watched a few more episodes in, so things may make a bit more sense. But I'm playing that role of noob where I'm coming cold to watching something, and as a casual viewer interested in this show and enough of the first episode to want to continue, I want to start off by talking a little bit about what I noticed and then ask you guys as the show goes what your thoughts were on it. So for me, overall, I think the basic consensus was between us that the show was definitely worth watching going into at least a second episode, and that there were some highlights to it. And Dalton, I know that you had mentioned before that something that stuck in my head about kind of like being serious and versus camp, how he plays it both ways, and that's something I'm going to add to here in a moment, because I thought the start was fairly interesting, but it was also a source of frustration for me in that we get to start off where you start to see this place, and I'm kind of the first image that comes to mind, and I guess it's called the Tower of the Gull or whatever, but you see this black guy, you don't know his name, and he's got all these skulls around, and what had happened was these two people are making out in some town, and then they see this hunchback female, and then they do the bad thing. They just start harassing the hell out of her. And I'm like, are they going to rape her? Are they going to do what? Is it dark? Is it campy? And then all of a sudden she appears in this place. And I'm like, okay, I didn't quite see that coming. I didn't know what the transition was. And I'm going, uh-oh. Are these time lapse that we've talked about maybe later in episodes? I'm trying not to think far ahead. But she's there and she talks to this guy. And it's like, okay, what the hell's going on here? We've got some new characters. We got a new thing going on. So that was kind of entertaining. So I guess we could call that the A plot because that was first. But then the second one was Siri, where she's still loose in the woods and she meets Rat Boy, as I like to call him, in one that's as she's trying to evade the Nilfgaard. And then, of course, you've got what probably to me it was the most entertaining thread out of the three, and that's where Geralt's traveling and he meets up with a bard, which is probably the least profound. But that so, go ahead, Dalton. You're itching to talk. Which one of those did you like?
And can we talk about the they basically straight up referenced one of my criticisms of the previous episode where the bard walks up to Gerald as he's like trying to mope in a corner, and it's like, you're not very good at moping in a corner, are you? And it's like, yo, don't reference the awkwardness of your casting. Seriously. Like, that's straight up one of my criticisms of the last episode was he can't play this secretive, like, hidden, grizzled old character if he's built like a brick shit house and with the face of Henry Cavill.
Handsome.
And unfortunately he is. So
Doctor, what about you?
I want to quickly point out that there's three things happening here. There's two different timelines right here.
But as a casual watcher, can you tell? Because I don't know that I could.
As as a casual watcher would know, when you first watch the second episode, you don't really don't figure this out until like this till the following episode. Um, but yes, what's weird is how they did how they did this. Maybe I wasn't paying attention enough. Now, I don't. Maybe other people have caught on it. I don't know if Dalton, if you caught on it that they were doing a flashback. Because Siri is present day, Yennefer is the past.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
if you know the games or the books, you know that when Gerald first meets Yennefer, she is 99,
yeah, she's
and
old.
her aging has been suspended. Her hunchback has been diminished by the magic. Um, so yeah, as of now, by following Yennefer, we have a character who, as per Gerald's time, this is sort of or
Yeah, so for example, like I was saying that as a casual observer myself, I'm watching this episode. I don't know of any flash forwards or flashbacks. So to me, I'm considering three separate timelines, all starting from the same reference point moving forward. And again, some things may make more sense in episode 3 or 4, depending on how they want to take it. So I'm aware that this will happen, but I have not experienced it yet. So that's why I felt, at least to me, what I'm calling the A timeline here, the first one for the most part, um, was a little off-putting because like I said, you have two new characters. You didn't know the guy's name. That they meet the what I like to call the angry headmistress, who basically has got this coven of witches, or her posse, if you want to call it that, and she's teaching them stuff, but you don't know why. You don't know anything. But I thought, because early on, Yennefer, who was there, was who she's hunchback. She looks at herself in the mirror. She tries to slit her wrists, and she doesn't die. And I'm like, wow, they're really continuing with this adult theme. But then boom, you cut away, and you've got this bard who I will say has a decent voice. It's kind of a funny tune, and he's I'm popping a little bit when he's got the loot and everybody's throwing stuff at him. I thought, okay, that's a nice comic relief, but I don't know if I want that. And I'm not saying he's bad or not entertaining, but that's one of my frustrations. Is I have three
Well,
different timelines that I'm bouncing around. The Siri one was like the one where I'd get up and go grab a drink. It wasn't horrible, but I'm going, okay, why am I supposed to care as an observer? So this is where I was getting a little frustrated, and I thought the one that told most of the lighthearted adventure stuff was, of course, the Bard one, as they're trying to find some little thing going on, and immediately I
yeah,
felt like I was playing a game again. Doctor?
yeah, I think the bard is also the past as well. Um, I basic knowledge of I watched in the third one. You wouldn't know this, but the bard is actually a past as well. Um, Siri is the only present day in this episode.
Wow. Okay. See, I didn't even know that either, too. Don't
yeah,
Yeah,
do you like juggling different timelines forwards and backs like that, or what's your
well,
take on this?
it depends. Like it, if they don't establish it, but something if it's the main thing is like, well, okay, what's all this, and then it kicks the next person, it's a pass. It's like I don't really care for movies where they show or TV shows where it's like each episode is from a different person. It's the same thing that happened, but it's from it's okay. This is what that person was doing while this was happening. Let's go to the five other people for the next five episodes, see what they're doing. It's like I hate that. Just move along with the story. It's stalling tactic. That's what it is.
What about you, Dalton?
um, I I have similar feelings. I think if there are going to be flashbacks, they should be kept to a minimum. Like in shows where the flashback serves the purpose of revealing a character's backstory or providing background information, that's fine. But I think you should have a main timeline where it's your present day of the story the flashback should be in reference. I'm not usually a big of the interwoven timelines. It is better in this case because we're following three different characters. Which my main issue with jumbled timelines is when they try to tell one character's backstory out of um out of order for thematic or plot contrivance. Like it was one of my least favorite parts of Cavill deal. Why was that story told out of order? Other than because we have Christopher Nolan and we want to be artsy. Because that's the only justifiable think of why they told. backstory out of order. With this though, it's Yennefer, Circe, and Gerald that we're following. Even
But
even Gerald's time is, as Frank pointing out, a the backstory for Gerald.
wouldn't you
It's
agree though?
actually the it's actually the bard it's actually the bard we meet in this episode that is responsible for all of the sort of lore or the public's widespread knowledge of Geralt.
Considering what they're doing with the flashbacks, would you rather have the flashbacks first, then make your way to the present? Like a prequel, and then
I think for me, and it's old school. If you were doing a flashback, where you're running through the fields at your loved one, and it's got the film on and everybody's smiling, and you got the crappy music playing in the background, and there's that
oh,
nice little soft fuzz on it. Visually as an observer
oh,
watching it that it's
oh yeah,
fantasy or a thought bubble or something. But to me,
um,
not knowing two of these are past timelines, I'm immediately
yeah,
thinking they're just in different locations on the earth. So it's hard for me to jump into one and feel that story, then switch over to another timeline, go, okay, let me stop, let me recalibrate as a viewer and go, let me get into this one. Because I think what we mentioned before on episode one was that when you start jumping around with different ones, I think sometimes as a viewer you get into a situation where you say, hey, I just happen to, for whatever reason, maybe it's the current mood I'm in, or maybe I understand this one more, I'm more prone to give more attention to one timeline than the other at the expense of those others. And it's not those other ones don't have something important to say, but
yeah.
obviously the payoff isn't occurring real time.
I was just gonna say real quickly, the best way to do a flashback is the way they did it in the Van Damme movie In Hell.
Yeah.
He's in jail and he's remembering things about his wife. We obviously know in the beginning she's dead, so
Mhm.
it's obviously blamed. This is, they tell us what's going on. This is being a flashlight. Or this one is like kind of jumbled.
I thought this episode was extremely cluttered because of third line. I could have cared less about for the sake of particular. I think it would have been much better. It would have been a much more balanced episode if he had gotten if Cersei's time had been given between Geralt, little side quest there, and Yennefer
Yeah.
training.
Well, let's do this. Let's talk
I
about
didn't
each
care
of
about
those three timelines
sake
and
of
what we thought. And so, Dalton, why don't you talk about Yennefer's, since that's the new character, and what did you think about that particular story arc?
I liked it. Obviously, I'm prone to enjoying magic stories, and the magic in this too bad. Um, so that was enjoyable. Um, I disliked the fact that they kept overemphasizing the fact that Glee, like making a thing out of it, because this is supposed to be like a medieval setting. So are we honestly telling me that the average commoner doesn't look ugly? Like, because it's not as though peasants in the Middle Ages had like dental care or I
Right.
how much worse is a hunchback that go? Yeah, she's ugly compared to, you know, movie star beautiful women around, but like not everyone is like that. She's a couple down from your average common setting. So why is it like of the elephant man?
Yeah, I think for me, that this particular storyline was interesting, not because of the characters or the fact that they introduced magic and maybe some loose boundaries or rules that they'll tighten up a little bit. It's the fact that she's in this unknown place with this unknown dude, and whenever they're there, I'm going, holy crap, look at all this. There's skulls everywhere and there's bones. The history of it makes me want to understand what's going on, and that was screaming at me every time there. I didn't care about them talking. Not that I disliked them, but I just was more drawn to something like it because, hey, it is a visual medium. So, Doctor, what did you think of this particular storyline?
Yennefer's storyline was pretty interesting. How they at first when you see her, I'm like, I only knew it was her because before they said the name by her eyes. I played the game, the third game. She has the purple eyes. As far as the rest of her story, as far as who her real parents are and stuff, and why she's deformed, I did not. I missed all that because I didn't play the first two games. So I'm just used to seeing her as like when Gerald meets her, all beautiful and stuff. So this and I like the way they did this though. She despite her looks, like the teacher took her under wing and she's like, hey, you can control chaos. The other ones, they're just kind of like pretty girls. They don't really know what they're doing. And just the whole thing is like, well, she's going through this. She may suck at this, but it's only because I think she's self doubting herself. It wasn't until she finally accepts, that hey, I'm gonna do whatever it takes. Then she starts like building more confidence. Especially with that guy, I felt he was leading her on the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. And he was just really really calm about it. And Istrid, I think, is his name, and I think her name, the headmistress with serious resting bitch face. I think if I'm pronouncing correct, is called Tisea. And I just thought, okay, we all know as adults that this has other things to it, so it was no surprise that. She was trying to, as we found out, ha ha ha, she was trying to get the flower from him as a part of her test. But then, of course, he's got, somebody that's, sneaking up behind him going, well, what have you found out? And he's like, well, she's half an elf. And it's like, okay, been there, done that, seen it. And I think the strongest thing about all this isn't the magic or any of these little subplots there. I just think she does a believable job with the role. The way she looks physically and all that too.
Oh,
So
definitely
yeah,
her
I,
mouth.
I think
The
that's
way her
decent.
mouth is, she's holding her mouth like that with purpose.
Yeah. All right, so let's go on.
I
We're saving the best for last here, but let's talk about. And Dalton, I'll have you go first on this. Timeline B, or not timeline, but let's say story B here. The series story with the elf that she meets in the woods, or rat boy she calls him, and everything there too. I know just from what you said a few minutes ago, you weren't. You were just kind of like, we could have split this time up to the other two. But what out of this did you find notable?
I liked her relationship with like the sort of matriarch of the family, the grandmother type.
Hmm.
I thought that was all very sweet, especially given the kind of horror movie vibe we got last time. It was nice to have a moment, but aside from that, it's okay. Don't I don't really care about this. The it's the old standby of everything looks like it's going well, but wait for the twist at the end, herder. Um, and I didn't, and that was also kind of my complaint about the Yennefer line. Like I wanted part of like the romantic part of me genuinely wanted to be real, and there because at this point their secret ulterior motives is itself kind of a cliche at this. So in my opinion, it almost would have been more interesting if if he had actually like just fallen in love with, and then maybe like she has to choose studies him, or maybe the resting bitch face sisters find out and she kills. That would have been more.
I agree.
And I'm double crossing, but you're double crossing me, but I'm also double crossing you, double crossing me, derp.
It's a triple cross. You can't double stamp, but triple stamp. I do want to say this though, and because of your comment about adult themes versus goofy stuff, is that I think that perhaps to me the best scene of this entire show, and then I'll see whether or not you guys agree with me, is the fact that when you mentioned that you thought the most interesting parts were the way the different people in the camp were talking about her family, and we know where she comes from, so it's interesting to see how she responds or doesn't, or how she deals with it. I thought that was interesting, but the best scene was the fact that here you bring in the little guy and the Lilliputian, the vertically challenged individual, and you're with this family that seems generous. They seem nice. They don't seem entitled or anything, but she makes the midget give her his own footwear, because she's like, oh, let's get you some new footwear. And then at the end, when the camp's being overrun and she's throwing the valuables at him, she's like, take these, we gotta go. And he didn't really catch him because the bag's as big as him. And then she slaps him. I was like, okay, that little bitch there, but hey, stressful situation. But then they do the totally great adult theme here, and the the hand guy, the midget, he takes a dagger and just whacks the crap out of her. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That was fantastic. It was like, okay. I mean, the theme of this particular storyline, or really the entire episode, is this: hey, you mess with somebody that's disabled, you're gonna pay. I mean, but that's the whole theme here, is that can't create or destroy energy. You can only convert from one form or another, the whole Newton's law thing here, but in terms of magic, but in terms of also how you deal with people. And so to me, I thought that was a great scene. What did you guys think?
Well, I like that there's character growth in this series. She's learning about people who telling her about stuff about her grandmother she did not know, and she's not, and she can't really defend it because without like revealing who she is, so she has to. She's basically growing up. She's maturing. Because before she just ran away and like would go play that little whatever like uh
Street
what was
games.
it? Yeah, street games. Yeah, yeah. So now she's waking up to stuff. When you first meet this, obviously this is a noble family. They have their own tent. They have all this fine silk and all that stuff. I'm thinking, yeah, all the poor people out there freezing. You're in here. I'm like, what a bee. And then, especially when I saw the boot scene, I was like, and series like kind of like, well, I'm don't want to do that. It's kind of mean. I'm fine.
True.
And he saw him. He's like, I hate this bitch. It's like, so finally when they're all gonna run away and stuff like this, and all of a sudden like because she was in the room with her, like when he jumps on her, he's like screw you, and she's like I don't know, he's just going crazy. He just starts stabbing her, like repeated like 1,000 times. Here Siri just falls over the bed and she's like only to be saved by her friend, the rat boy.
Well, but I mean, when society collapses,
but it is like crazy. It's like, and it's funny. It's like how you'll see in the next episode, but like at this point, you're wondering like, how are they tracking her? Are they just going blindly? This is Nilfgaard going after her.
Don't know.
Like,
As a casual viewer, I'm just watching, going, okay, are the writers doing this out of convenience or whatever? I don't know yet.
I mean, it's obvious if they have scouts going through like several scouts and they see this large group of settlement, they're going to go through it. But it's like, we're just going to kill everybody. It's like, what if you accidentally killed the girl?
I know. What were you going to say there, Dalton?
I was just gonna make the comment that when society collapses, you kind of get a glimpse at people's true natures. Like, is we all have the social contract of all those things we hide away, but you take someone who has no power and you even the scales a little bit, knock the societal contract of civility away, and things are the way they are. We're animals, and this, of course, being a medieval setting, I think that helps because as bad as things might get today, and they can, we still don't hold a candle to the abject misery that everyone in the Middle Ages, even the nobles in the Middle Ages.
That's true. That's a good point. I
Miserable.
don't know if they'll explore that later on, but obviously, I have a different tone to each of the different stories that we have here, which, of course, the first two you could say are somewhat serious because, the first one has, new characters. The second one here has, the midget stabbing the guy, and you're like, you don't, okay, that stands out, but you don't know where it's going. And of course, at this time watching it, I don't believe it's really easily uh, observable to the average person watching that there's multiple timelines going on. So with that in mind, this brings us to the C story arc, and that of course is the bard Jaskier, I believe is his name, with Gerald. And I just gotta say, I think sometimes a great introduction, just like great theme music if you're a wrestler, and just powerful opening is fantastic. And I thought this guy standing in a corner just singing along with his lute, and people throwing stuff at him was fantastic. I popped for it. It's not because I didn't like the other two stories. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying this one felt like a lighthearted kind of serial romp adventure, which I think this show could very easily be without even trying. And if it stayed one note like that through the entire series, by episode 2 that we're in, you'd be like, okay, I get it. I know what's up. I can't wait for episode 3, and I've got a few more episodes after that to watch. They are trying to be ambitious, so what do you think, Dalton?
It is still nice, though, I think, to have a Gerald basically going about his average day kind of thing, because The thing with like these epic dark fantasy series is they try to make every plot fit in somehow to the larger picture, and it's like no, sometimes people just have to, do their day-to-day job. And for Geralt, his day-to-day job is go to random village, find a person of monster fighting, and fight monster. So it's nice to see that, and it is also interesting to bring in sort of the elf lore there. 'Cause, for those that know The Witcher, there's a whole um, history with the humans and the elves, and humans in the world of The Witcher are basically immigrants to the world of the elves, and elves kind of um, actually welcomed humans at first, um, and then basically used the knowledge of the elves against the elves, in kind of a barbarians taught by the Romans caused the fall of Rome kind of way.
The Great
And
Cleansing, I believe they called it.
yeah, and it didn't go well. It didn't go well for the elves. So now you have the elves being all resentful because, well, we basically tried to do everything we could to be nice to y'all, and you kind of genocided us a little bit. So that's
But
not okay.
I'm not defending what happened, but I'll simply point out for all these hoity-toity elves that have carrying around this resentment for generations, I go, hey, you guys are pretty smart. You mastered magic and did all that stuff. I can already tell that's going to be a major theme here. But you mean to tell me you kind of didn't really see that coming? I'm just saying. So, that being said, as we go to you here in a moment, Doctor, I thought this actually, that with all the things going on, this was an actual very tight story because, as Dalton was saying, here Geralt goes into town. A guy says, "Hey, I got something that's eating all the grain. Here's the money, in advance. Go kill it." And the bard tags along on his own, and Geralt lets him. So he ends up finding, but I thought it was kind of neat. It was a satyr, and they get captured, and it just seems kind of goofy and silly, like on Conan the Destroyer, like part two, levels of goofiness. But the way they did do the lore, I thought was good. So let me ask you, what was your whole take about this particular angle,
As far as this whole everything what's going on in this episode,
or just this particular storyline? The Geralt and the Bard and the grain and
the
the
bard,
backstory. Yep.
I enjoyed it because this is what happens in Witcher 3 when you're playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole exchanging of coins and stuff, and when people do this stuff, you're kind of forced into doing this. Like, not always, but sometimes if you want to find like maybe like a good loot when you kill the monster, you get, because the whole game is built upon he's works for a guild, and your money goes to the guild. So you basically are a little small little family, and so I love this, like, especially the backdrop, like there's a monster hunter. There's always a freaking village, like, oh, help us, sir, help us. It's like classic Witcher, like, or any of those games of Dragon Age. You basically are like, sir, can you help us? Our village is big.
It did feel like a video game, and I don't mean that in a
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
way, but you knew what to
No.
expect, and they have the moral quandary, and how does he get out of it? You don't know, and that's the
And
hook.
the knowing
Well,
bard, yes, the bard. I love the fact that he's like, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna keep following you. And Gerard's like, I want to kill this guy. I want to kill this guy. And so Gerald is like, I'm thinking, Gerald, just kill him, man. I don't care. But it works for the storyline though, as far as
but did you guys catch the little dig at Elric there? When the bard is thinking of different names for Geralt, that's not the butcher Blaviken. He actually calls him the White Wolf, like
I did,
ironically
and that
for a
was when they
second.
were walking away at the very end, and that's right before the big philosophical line where he goes, "That's not what happened," and he's like, "Well, respect doesn't win wars, or side history, or whatever the hell it was." I'm like, "Yes, it was right before
Well,
that. I did catch that."
he first mentions it though when they're walking into the like farm where the satyr creature is stealing all the grain. Like, what about the White Wolf? And I'm like, that's a damn sight near. I don't know if that should be allowed because there's a lot of controversies surrounding whether Geralt of Rivia as a character and the lore of The Witcher is kind of ripping off Elric. So that was like I appreciated the reference, but I'm also like, are you guys really think you can get away with that? That should not quite be allowed.
Yeah. Well, overall, for my final thoughts before we go to you guys, I just wanted to say that, like I say, as a casual observer and not knowing what's going on, I liked this episode. I didn't think it was bad. It sounded perhaps like we were critiquing it, but I think we're just offering observations, and I still feel like we're in that typical structure in the first act because we're still meeting new characters. We're seeing new things going on. I think they were somewhat patient with lore and things being introduced. Um, that being said, I'm not really attached to the Yennefer line yet or the Syria, although I think they're interesting as characters in that they're doing a good job. I'm just going to need a bit more from that for me to get emotionally attached. And like I say, the C story there with the Iskir and Gerald, I think is the one you can anybody watching can easily attach to because of it. So maybe that makes it a bit simpler in terms of viewing. And I think unlike what I would consider a failure in Westworld, which just jumps all over the place, and some other shows that try to do this, just because you can do it doesn't mean you really should in terms of storytelling. So I really don't know where this show is going to go. I don't know how they're going to end up, whether it's, can't wait for season two, or hey, it feels like a complete series. Let's see what happens in season two. Don't know. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I guess I was a little thrown off by 3 lines rather than 2. Okay, I assume that there won't be maybe that many new major characters. I'm sure I'm wrong on that. But as a watcher, I'm going, okay, it's decent enough where I'll go look forward to watching the third episode, but I still don't know if it's going to try to be very adult-like or not. So for final thoughts, what do you have, Dalton? Then we'll go to you, Doctor, after that.
Um, this was definitely, in my opinion, better than the first episode. Um, the first episode was a little bit dour in a few spots,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the sort of lore aspect of this is our magic system and this is her being trained as a sorceress sort of offered a nice, and I did like the Gerald just sort of doing Gerald things plot. But like I say, that Cersei plot kind of dragged a little bit. It's better now, I think, that we've discussed for me, because it kind of throws in that little bit of, oh, there's resentment bubbling under the surface thing. But yeah, this is interesting setup, and I really hope that we do go deeper into the ins and outs of the magic. I don't want this to be a one-off. How Yennefer gets her powers. I want this to be an extended plot,
Right. Not an
and
18
I
scene and all of a
want
sudden she's
The
all
Witcher
powerful.
to lay off being all meta. Because if you're ripping off Elric, you say you're ripping off Elric. So,
Doctor, final prescription. What's your diagnosis?
Um, yeah, it did pick up. This episode picked up. You're seeing more of Gerald. You're seeing he can be. It's like the best way to describe it is like if you watch what was it, The Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon goes to smile, they're like, "Hey, don't smile." That's basically with Gerald when you see him trying to do emotion, because his character is literally devoid of emotion, so he mimics it. But yes, he does get angry. He's grumpy all the time. So yeah, this scene, especially the scene with him and the elves.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, if you're gonna kill me, kill me. He's like, and the bard's like, no, don't kill us. Escape. He's like, do your escape thing. It's like the whole time even when they're tied up, it's like the bard is like, just leave him alone. So I love they're doing drama, a little bit of comedy, not too much comedy though. But yes, this is playing out like the game. Like I said, I don't really know too much of the books. I forgot that even Yennefer was deformed for when they first, I forgot about that because, like I said, I started like in the first, no, the third game, and I read the Wikipedia for the second one, and then didn't mention that stuff, so it must have been done in the book.
So after 2 episodes, what's the storyline that you're really looking forward
Yeah.
to seeing in episode 3?
Oh, I've already watched episode 3, so so
I understand
and
that.
for someone who hasn't seen it, if you're not liking this series, man, it's like, well, it just not that's might not be for you. There's other ones out there. Netflix. It's just good thing about Netflix. It has so many things in there starting out. Like starting tomorrow, you can watch the second season of Lost in Space, the reboot. there's other movies on here too. There's Six Underground with Ron Reynolds. There's so many different things you can do on Netflix, if you want to. It all depends on what your interest is. If you're really not into like Lord of the Rings or anything stuff that, you're probably not gonna like this.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. So before I wrap up my final thoughts, Dalton, what about you? And also include your plugs.
Um, what about me? What?
Final
I'm
thoughts.
sorry.
Any last thing you're looking forward to for episode 3 and just overall impressions?
Um, like I say, I don't know if I can get behind Gerald as a character just yet, because he's more of a brute than characters that I normally follow. But I guess for the time being, at least, I have Yennefer, who is the token magic. So I'll be more interested in seeing, I think, where that goes as
Cool.
far as that.
And how can people get a hold of you? What do you do? Let everybody know.
Yeah, as per the shilling, as always, I am Dalton Mortimer. I am the author. It's called the author. Um, on said channel, I do a mixture of philosophy, magic and the occult, and pop culture. How all three intersect. I also regularly videos and a lot of other things, which I am trying to playlists on my for anyone interested in that. You can find that stuff there as well. Well, you can follow me on Twitter at the authentic without a U, because Twitter is stupid and characters per the tag I wanted. And you can find me just about everywhere else on the at the authentic. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, I'd like to say thanks for guesting tonight. I'm glad you're able to show up, Doctor. I'd like to say the same thing as well too. Doctor obviously does a lot of shows with me. If you like martial arts and action, we have Kick in it. We do a science fiction one, a horror one. Dalton's been the occasional guest on off and on too, but he's always a friend of the program too. So that, guys, I'd like to say thanks for showing up. As always, stay extreme. Good night, everybody. Toodles, TTFN.